This is the Doubtless podcast, here to help you change from a state of doubt and insecurity towards a more calm, confident, and doubtless self. I'm your host, coach and psychologist Julian, and my guests are remarkable, ambitious humans who share their stories of doubtful moments, of their insecurities, and how that shaped their successes today. Let's do it again.
Yeah, that's good.
Damn it. Let's do it again. Let's hope it works too. Wait, you're unmuted right now? Is that on purpose? Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I have 7 dogs and they're puppies. Yeah,
Oh,
so they love to have a rumpus. So before just to minimize the at least the intro, they'll
yeah.
definitely bark throughout the day.
Okay, I'll do it again. Hi, Victor. I am so excited to talk to you about your latest book, No Grails Without Dragons. And the reason why this book touched me actually when I was reading it was because you put so much intricate detail into describing how you feel, the truth, the emotions, the vulnerability in it. And at the same time, you gave very clear insights and tools and your revelations. And it felt just like truth to me, like the rawness of it was really striking. And to start out in the same theme, I want to read a quote that stood out to me from in the very, very beginning of the book, actually, already, which is, I crawled out of my skin to be the everything to everyone, betrayed myself to please or follow others, only to wallow in despair when I met my inevitable fate. That feels very deep already. Thank you for sharing it in that way. First of all, also welcome to the show. And what does this quote evoke in you?
Well, hi Julian. Thanks for having me and for reading the book. And that quote brings up a lot of emotion, a lot of memories, and now that you're reading it back to me, I can see how that's the string that connects a lot of different pearls and the experiences that I share. So yeah, it's a lot of emotions, that's for sure.
And do you remember the situation where that was true when you did, bend your back for others, where you went into others people's liking, and then what was the shift that happened, the inevitable fate?
Well, that started at an early age. I remember around 7 years old. So my dad was rather tough on me when I was a kid, and around 7 years old, I'm walking into my house, and he calls me and says, "Victor, come here," and I I get flooded with anxiety because every time he called me, I knew something was coming. And so he sits me down and he says, "Look, I want you to know that I'm not just your dad, but also your best friend. And if you ever have a situation or a problem in life, you can come back to me and we'll solve it together." So instead of my usual rush of anxiety, I feel this relief because to me it's like, wow, I'm free. I don't have to worry about punishment anymore. So a few weeks go by and I get I think a C on math or something with like a low grade on one of my school subjects. And I remember my first reaction being really worried about what will happen when I got home. I had to walk about 10-15 minutes home. And in the past, that walk used to be a dread because I'm thinking about the moment I'm gonna get there, the moment my dad is going to do whatever he's gonna do. But this time around, I feel relaxed and I think, okay, he told me we will solve this, and so
Mhm.
it'll be fine. So I get there and I come in all peppy and happy because I hadn't carried the dread throughout the 15 minutes. And so I say, "Hey, Dad," and it's like, "What?" And it's like, "Oh, I got a C in math," and he just lays it on me out of nowhere, and I was like, that to me was betrayal for the first time in my life. And from that moment on, I assumed this perspective that I couldn't really do what I wanted to do or be myself or say what I felt, because it will evoke a negative result in other people, and therefore in myself. And and as I went through life, as I went first with friends, the first group of friends I made, I used to do things that I wouldn't do otherwise, that I was taught not to do. So I was betraying myself to have the company of these friends, and eventually they disappeared. They either dumped me, or they either turned on me and made fun of me and or humiliated me, and then that extended to relationships, where I always felt that I think the first advice I heard when I started dating was be yourself. And so I was being myself, and that never led anywhere, right? I would get dates for maybe a week, 2 weeks. And then when I started doing things against what I felt was right, or I felt that I was comfortable with, or as some people say, resonated with me, I avoided the abandonment, or the results that I fear, at least temporarily, but eventually it came to that very end. It didn't matter how much I sacrificed myself, or how much I traveled back and forth to sustain my second marriage, or how much I bent over backwards, went to work on the weekends, or worked late at night for someone, or kissed my boss's ass. It didn't matter how much, because by the end, it always felt like the rug was pulled from under me. So by 36, which is when I started writing No Grail Without Dragons, I felt that I was a constant in life, a constant where uh, I had betrayed myself in many ways. I had done things that I wouldn't do, and said things to myself that I wouldn't say, just to hold on to other people, or jobs, or love, or whatever it is that I wanted. And at the end, I ended up empty-handed, and also with the regret of being like, man, I should have said that. I should have done that. But now I had two things. I had the pain of love, and also the burden of regret of knowing better but not doing it.
Wow. So what I hear there is like this this wish for a young boy to, like, I want to do things right. I want to do things the way that other people feel good, and this will that was just naturally in you to, like, oh, I want to make my parents happy. I want to be a good boy. Got then flipped because of that situation, that, or like that was one initiation at least, and then turned around to, okay, wait, if I am actually truly myself and truly say the things and truly be who it feels like to me, then something bad happens. Something, people pull away, or the rug gets pulled under your feet. Is And that is, what kind of emotion did that instill to you? Because to me it sounds like there's like this huge insecurity um underneath, like, relationships, underneath money, underneath jobs, underneath parents. Like, what does that mean to you?
It it instilled a number of different things, and one of them was how my fear transformed into resentment and hate. Before I had this experience that I detail on the first chapter of the book, I had a misanthropic worldview. I thought that humans were nothing but a cancer, or were out to do what best for them, and I had 36 years to prove it. Uh, I had I felt hopelessness, because for better or for worse, I've always had, and I think everyone has it, right? But I can only speak for myself. I've always had this angel and devil on my shoulder, like in the little
Mm-hmm.
cartoon, and the angel's voice always prevailed. And I instinctively wanted to do the right thing, not lie, not steal, not cheat, not portray myself in a way that I wasn't. But doing that repeatedly led to the opposite result of what I thought it should achieve. So I started transforming myself into someone else. and that led me down many dark paths, and yeah, I've partaken in a lot of different things that they're not worth mentioning, but definitely on the darker side of life, because uh, losing hope and just sort of being lost on what it all means, right? Why everyone is out for themselves, why no one thinks twice about doing certain things that then affect a person's life in such magnitude. That led me into a bit of hopelessness and despair, to say the least, to the point that not only I hated humans in a way, right? I had all this resentment and all this hate built into me, and that translated into everything else that I did in life. And so that's where it took me. It took me to the edge of considering my life not worthy, where I considered taking my life, right? Also before that experience in the book. And it instilled in me a lot of hate and resentment towards others that thankfully I came to realize before doing something worse, right? Not saying that I was gonna do something bad to other people, but to myself in a way. And that's where that's where that experience took me.
You already prefaced the experience with thinking about suicide.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, do you wanna share that part? I don't want to go
Yeah.
in a specific direction, but please, the way that feels for you, the way you want to share it, please.
Yeah. So I'm 36 years old. By now, I've been separated from my second wife for a couple of years. I've been raising my children for almost 2 years on my own. Um, when that when the separation happened, you know, she announced that she wanted me to file for divorce. I moved out of the house. I lived out of my car for a couple of months. And when I got an apartment, uh, I began taking care of my kids full time because she got a second job, and she wasn't very present. So um, that was the first straw in an already tired camel. And learning how to parent was excruciating because I had daily breakdowns. And when the kids will go to sleep, I would just crawl in a corner and just cry because of the things that happened, of the fears that I had, the emotions that I had felt, the ways that I had acted. Again, that knowing better, right? Like the many times that we react in a way, but we only realize it after the fact. And sometimes those are minor things, and sometimes they cause major pain in other people. And so realizing that really instilled a lot of pain in me. Then I get into another relationship, and now we're almost at the 2 year mark. We're lived together, and the kid lived with her, and she had been present for my kids the whole time, and they started calling her mom, and so we had a really good thing going. But we also had our challenges, and one of those challenging nights. Well, and I'm sorry, I'll backtrack a little bit. When I become a dad, I also get laid off from my job. I used to work a corporate job. I made six figures. I had a company car. I had life insurance, health insurance. So my life was pretty easy. It was pretty easy going. So I lose that. So that's gone now. And then we move into with my partner, and I run out of money at about a year mark. I run out of savings. My retirement fund gets cut in half because of a technicality with the company. So I start selling my belongings until I run out of belongings to sell, and now I go into that cycle of fear, which puts stress on my relationship, and the stress starts showing up in different ways until one night we have an argument, and she announces that she's leaving. She's telling me, I can't take it anymore, and I talked to my mom. I'm gonna move out with her, and this will be my last month here. And here we are again, blindsided, right? Things that I think or that I felt could be worked out between people, because none of these things had ever evoked that feeling of just wanting to abandon things. It didn't matter how hard the job got, how hard the relationship got. To me, it was fine. I mean, I had been exposed to a lot worse. So I said, hey, this has a solution, right? But the other party didn't think the same. And so she tells me this. And instead of my usual fighting, or trying to convince her otherwise, or to show her that she's wrong, or to look at a new perspective, I just I just get out of the room. And I had been already toying with suicide because, I think Carl Jung said suicide is a beautiful the thought of suicide is a beautiful thing because they get you through many dark nights. Because when you say, I'm gonna take my life, and then you're like, nah, it's not worth it. You know what? This will pass. And so that but and so that thought had been in my mind. I had a therapist about a year before that. I couldn't pay her anymore, so I had to stop. And I had talked to her, and I said, listen, there are just days that I just don't want to live anymore because it doesn't matter what I do. I can't seem to hit the right key. It doesn't matter how much I try to hold myself. It's like this demon comes out anyways, and it causes damage, and then I regret the damage. So now I'm hurt twice. And so I had already been toiling with the idea, but never taken it seriously. I just sort of observed the thought as saying, man, like I don't want to live anymore. But it wasn't I'm intending not to live anymore. It was just the thought of saying I can't do this anymore, right? But that night was different. That night um, sort of drove it home for me because I said, well, there's clearly something wrong with me. I mean, I'm clearly cut out for this pattern because it doesn't matter how much self-development I do. It doesn't matter how much therapy I do. It doesn't matter how much I want to improve myself. There's always another 50% that I cannot control and that I cannot predict. And by 36, being divorced twice, um, being a single dad of my two kids for a few years, not having a penny, I had applied to easily over 100 jobs, not a callback. When I used to think that I was this big shot, right? This big guy who's done all these things and launched all these businesses and this inventions. So and here I was really having a different side of reality, almost saying like you're sort of worthless. Nobody really cares about your experience. My friends had distanced themselves, and especially the work circle I had before,
Yeah.
because in the United States you don't get to see your friends many times, a lot outside of work. So you build friendships with the people at work. But once I got laid off, then I was a stranger to them the next day. So at this point, taking my life is it's just a practicality. To me, it's just I don't care what's on that other side of that wall. I know what I'm gonna keep getting if I stay here. Um, I also had a life insurance policy, which I think had a clause of 2 years. So I'd been 2 years already. So if I took my life, the kid would have gotten paid. So it really was almost like a technical decision. Say I will stop suffering. My suffering will stop now, right? Because what am I? I'm 36. What else do I have to look forward to? Do I get into? I already tried for the third time this relationship, and now she's leaving. And this time around, I'm causing more damage to my kids because they have a bond with her and they call her mom, and they don't know what the turmoil is behind closed doors. And all of a sudden, they'll find themselves without a motherly figure again. And who's to blame, right? Who's so so as I came to the decision to do it, I wasn't thinking about it. I came to the conclusion that said, this is what I have to do. The kid get $1 million. I'll put it to the name of my ex. She can buy a house. She can use the money to support themselves for the next few years until they get some stability. And I'm out of and I stop being the rock and the cog of everybody. I stop being a nuisance in everyone's life, because that's what I felt I had been up until that point. So I come to this conclusion, and now I sit on the couch and I think on it, and I start sobbing because of this conclusion, because I feel that there's no point to it all. I feel that I have wasted my time up until now. I also feel that things were rather unfair because I had always done what I felt was right, many times at my own expense. Um, but it didn't lead to a good result. So it was there was a dichotomy in how I felt and what I've done. So I'm sobbing, and I'm just asking for forgiveness to my kids for what I'm about to do, mostly for having caused them any pain. And at this point in my mind, I'm bringing up all of these situations where I had done wrong, this just happened organically. It's not something I forced myself to do. It's almost like if someone opened the lid of a bucket full of worms and the worms just start pouring out. So I start seeing all of these things. And I'm asking for forgiveness while I'm sobbing and I'm just crying and and suddenly this experience happened to me, this what I detail in the book, which I still can explain. You know, I cannot, I can tell you what the experience is. I tell you what it's not. And how my life changed after that. And that's when it all flipped. I realized that if I had if I had survived all these things up until now, it was because I could. It was like a
Mm.
boxer, right? If I go into a boxing ring today against an amateur, the first punch from his hand is gonna knock me out. But then there's these guys who can take more punches, and then they keep progressing, and then get to the pro levels, and then they win the world championship. That's just because they can get hit a lot harder and get back up again. And I realized that in an emotional sense, that was me as a man. In an existential sense, I've gotten knocked down so many times. I have moved 50 times around the world. I've started my life from scratch many times, from 16 hours washing dishes at a restaurant to being unemployed for a year. Um, and it will be a crime if I took my life and everything I've learned from it and just threw it in the garbage, because it's the coward's way out. It's the easy way out. That was the easiest thing to do. It was not scary. It was easy. But I say,
Mm.
what service am I doing to my kids? Because if I suffered this much, it's because I was ignorant, because I didn't know any better. Nobody had taught me any better. And the way that I behaved in the world was more reactionary versus purposefully. So, and at that point in time, I had this experience, and and I'm telling you, all of this happened within a split second. I mean, it's not that I sat there
I know.
for hours on end. It just happened like this. And I think in Chinese, they call it "eng" because it's like, oh, it just happens to you, right? And so now I understand that the best gift I can give my children is to give them those 36 years of experiences of doing all of these things that I wanted to do, how I felt, and how I overcame them. Because now, if I had built a skyscraper and I tumble it down by taking my life, my kids will have to start from the basement. But now they can start from the 15th floor, and they can keep going if they want to, or they can scale down. And then they have my map of experiences that was earned through literal blood, uh, to spare them from a lot of unnecessary pain. So I start writing the book, and then I realized that men my age, modern men, men between 25, 45, men in general wrestle with many of these issues. So I say, hey, the best that I can do is I surrender my life. I not surrendered, I relinquished it. Up until that point, I gave my life away, and then the purpose found me. And so now I devoted my life to that purpose, and I wrote the book. It took me nearly 2 years to edit, and I just made it for modern men to just have a guide right through many of these challenges, and hopefully it's helped someone.
It is so fascinating to me that in this ang, an awesome word to learn, in this split seconds, the whole world changes. Like it's you had like glasses on before, some sort of perspective. Like I am the no, I'm the reason for all of these suffering of my children, of yourself. You're like the thing that makes everything the bad thing. And then it flips. It completely like just this emotion, this sudden realization, and then it completely shifts to, wait, I have another thing. I have this purpose. Made you to sit on your computer for hours and hours to edit it and to put all this time and effort in it. And just this moment's notice of, oh, wait, there's something else. There's meaning. There's purpose, as you said yourself, to actually push you forward. This is so fascinating to me, and it happens to me, but also to so many of my clients too, that when there's one thing that changes their perspective, suddenly they have this more energy. There's like, oh wait, I have this thing to do, the thing that I'm here for. So can you like elaborate a little bit more on what it means for you to actually have a purpose or a feeling of I'm here for something?
Yeah. I So I've been searching for my purpose for a very long time, mostly because of the existential issues of why it is that I live. I said, well, why am I even alive? What's my purpose? And and to try to answer that question, I I embarked in everything I could think of, from a professional sports career to fighting art to music. I created a band. Then I created a solo band, and I recorded 2 albums. Um, I traveled around the world. I dated a lot. I thought maybe women were the solution. I Then I pursued money and made tons of money, um, and I lost it all, obviously. And then um, I sought for that purpose in a lot of hitting corners. Religion, I've partaken in 7 religions. So, but each time that something privates me, say, hey, maybe by the end of this road, you'll find your purpose. And
Mm.
I got, I don't think you can get to the end of the road, abstractly speaking, but I got to a point where most people will think they made it, right? With the band, I played big venues and I paid for it, and had girl fans who will text me, and groupies, and that to me was like, that this is not it. When it came to sports, I made it into a team. I got sponsored. I actually was going through my pictures yesterday, and I found a picture where I was featured as the poster on a magazine. And so it was me as a poster, and to me, it's almost surreal. But that's one thing from the viewers side, but from the personal side, it was just like, this is not it. And so I gave that up. And when it came to money, same thing. When it came to cars, same thing. I got exotic cars, and I said, well, what's next? This is $150,000 car, what, $300,000 car, $500,000 car. And so then I got, this is not it either. So uh, getting to the edge of the abyss, to consider my life so worthless and pointless that I just needed to just end with it because I had no purpose. And then my purpose slapping me in the face like a brick. It it it's finding everything that I dreamt of finding, right? It's finding what I had spent my life looking for. And when I surrender and I suddenly didn't want it anymore, the purpose found me. So for me, uh, not only it helped me stay alive, but also imbued my life with the ultimate meaning. Because being a writer hasn't been easy for me. My native language is Spanish, and although I had some experience writing for companies, but when I started learning how to actually write, I understood that I didn't know anything. I really it's the difference between grabbing a brush and dipping it in paint and doing some scribble on a wall versus knowing the techniques that go behind it and whatnot. So I realized that I really was ignorant, and 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 it hasn't been an easy road even up until today, right? It's a road that it always challenges you, but when you know your meaning, when you know your purpose, and it's something that it's not something that you make up, something that I know.
Can you elaborate on that? Because this feeling of knowing, I think it's such a difficult thing to describe, and just based on the book, you might find some words to actually bring a bit more clarity in this, because you speak from knowing, and it's just knowing that this is my purpose. How do you know? How does that feel that you know?
Yeah, I don't know how I just know that oh, it's an unwaverable feeling. It so I mean, I've tried to explain it. It's nearly impossible to explain, but um it's the same. If you've never tasted banana pudding, and I tell you, well, and you've never tasted banana, You say, well, banana pudding tastes like bananas, but it's creamier and it has a different smell, and it's yellow because of the banana. So you sort of know what banana pudding is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know what it's not until you taste it. So when the first time you put that spoonful in your mouth, now your brain registers what it smells like, combined with what it tastes like, combined with what it feels like, combined with how it makes you feel. And so when someone tells you banana pudding, you don't go to the specification of the banana pudding, but the combination of all those feelings. And so
Mm.
you know what banana pudding tastes like because you've tried it, right? Somebody can talk to you about heartbreak and tell you how heartbreak feels, and you can even see a heartbroken person crying. But if you've never experienced a heartbreak, you know what a heartbreak is, right? And you know it's a tough situation. You know that it's something hard to overcome, whatnot. But you don't know what it feels like, the unexplainable, the invisible, until you actually get heartbroken.
Mm.
And then it has a whole new meaning to you, right? It now being heartbroken doesn't just mean a bad time, but it also means everything else that you go through when you experience heartbreak. So when I speak about this knowing, it's it it's just knowing. It's just knowing in at an atomic level that that's what I have to do. Just call it divinity, call it a higher purpose or a higher force or conscience. It's impossible for me to explain.
Yeah.
All I know is it feels like absolute certainty, because
Yeah.
every time I've said, "Man, this writing this book is hard," or "Why am I doing this for?" I remember that. I remember that moment. That moment when everything condensed into one experience, and it gave me all of the answers that I needed. And so when I and what it felt like, I
Mm-hmm.
felt like eureka. I found it. This explosion in my chest, in my being. It just felt like gosh. And so how do you fight against that, right? I can rationalize all I want out of it, but how do you fight against what you actually felt and experienced? And
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 I
so
think
that's what
it's
that knowing is. It's
yeah. And I think that's the important part, that it it is not a consciously cognitively knowing, because like it's not knowledge, it's not like an information piece that you took in and like, oh, now I know this, but it's a now really the words are missing, but it's a feeling inside that this is truth, that there is something that's not debatable, that whether that is true or not, or whether you have to do that or not. It is just, no, that is what's needing to be done now. And it's brings a certain calm or peace with it, at least in my experience, which like, okay, now I don't have to worry about doubting it or not, but that's the thing that needs to be done. And do you think that negative experiences are necessary in order for anyone to feel this? Is this like an important part, to feel the dread and doubt and insecurities in order for you to actually understand what knowing is, or to find your purpose?
oof. Well, I can tell you that for me, it seemed that negative experiences had to be a part of it, um, because I don't know if you've ever been hungry, if you've ever been really hungry, and maybe you can fast for a couple of days, and once you get whatever it is that you put in your mouth, it tastes incredible. It's the best sandwich you ever ate in your life. It's the best apple pie you've eaten in your life. It's the best glass of milk you've ever eaten in your life. But if you stuff your face with apple pie every day, it doesn't feel the same. So when you take a person who's been hungry, and you put a person who's been stuffing their face with pie side to side, and you sit them at a table and you give them the same slice of pie, both people are going to have incredibly different experiences. One is going the person who's being hungry is going to feel elated at that piece of pie. It's the best pie. Is going to feel a joy and a satisfaction at a level that the person who's been eating it every day can't. And in that sense, I think that the difficulty, the tough times, are what allow us to see that contrast, see the contrast between what we've been through and the real value of something that we have now. That happened to me when I moved to Argentina to make my second marriage happen, and I went from having all sorts of luxuries and luxury cars here and a nice apartment with air conditioning. And if I stained my t-shirt, I could just go and buy another one. Or if I wanted the latest shoes, I could just go and get them. To live in a place where I had no air conditioning, no heat. Uh, I I had no belonging because I sold them to survive. I got a regular job. I took the bus with the peasant, if you will, right? The guys who went and harvested and all dirty and with drunks and with teas. And when I came back to this lifestyle, now everything had a different color, everything had a different flavor and different taste. And to me, having a bed to sleep in, to me is I wake up and I'm like, man, it's good to have a bed, and it's good to have air conditioning and obviously from the basic things to everything else. So and that I don't think that would have been possible if I hadn't tried that. And the same thing with purpose. And to answer your question directly, uh, you have to, at least I don't know, I don't think you have to, but I had to test all of those things. I had to pursue my purpose in all of the places where it was not, to realize that my purpose was not there. So when I found my purpose, I will know what my purpose is.
Mm. You need to cancel out all the other options in order to actually know how it feels when you find it.
Right. And
And
you don't do that consciously. You just try and try and try and try until you hit jackpot. I mean, I'm not saying everyone, I'm not saying go torture yourself. So you can do that because it's not, obviously that's not a formula, but in my case, it was going through all those experiences and knowing what's not. So when I got what it is, then I knew that is right. Does that make any sense?
yeah, I think so. Like to me, it feels like the way you describe it now is that you went through a lot of experiences just to create some sort of baseline and then know, okay, wait, that was actually really good. Oh, that was terrible. I didn't know because it was the normal, right? A
Right.
lot of times we sometimes are in this like state where okay, like it feels completely terrible, but I guess everybody's doing it, so it's normal. I should just get on with it. And yeah, like I mean, nobody ever talks about how they feel, or nobody shares ways on how to deal with emotions or a breakup. But I guess that's just the way it is, and so I just got to deal with it myself, for example, right? And so that's the inner voice that we fall into that makes it just sound normal, and it's so tricky because that's the world that we have. If we haven't expanded it and pushed the limits, you're like, wait, is that really true? Like, is that how things should be or not? Is there a way to change things? And I think that's so much freedom when we start to question our own internal voice that kind of dictates on how our experience is, right? The way you're describing it was so interesting that it was like, oh, I'm the source of all suffering of my children. I'm the reason that there were all these breakups. I'm the reason that I don't have money right now. I'm the reason that I feel shit right now. Like all of these things, that story that your inner voice was telling you, um, was not true. But you couldn't see it. You just couldn't see it, and I think it's so powerful to question that. And I remember you had also a couple of quotes in Latin in the book. Uh,
Hmm.
and so what is that to do with maybe your inner voice and how you dealt with those tough situations that were in your mind?
they're they're probably, even though they're just quotes, I see them as a rope, a rope that I held on to through when the floor collapsed under me, I held on to that rope. And when the wind came and pushed, I held on to that rope. And those quotes, one of them means fear nothing.
Mm-hmm.
and the other one means fortune favors the brave.
Yeah.
And so every time I faced a situation where I thought that it will be the end, because I've faced some potentially life-ending situations, not in my own hands. Um, I've faced things such as my first wife telling me she wants to get divorced, and then that was it. You know, she moved back, and I never had any closure from it because I never talked to her. I mean, I spoke to her a couple of times after that, almost with the hopes of things just maybe she saying, no, you know what, it was just a state, right? You know, and that never happened, and so I faced that. I faced the second divorce where I got laid off and became a single dad at the same time, and so each time that I faced these situations where I said, "Man, what am I gonna do? What do I do? Where do I go?" Right? I, I had to have something to keep me going. You have to have a little bit of a rope to hold on to, and those
Mhm.
quotes mean that to me. I mean, and something else that I've proven, right? There's nothing to fear, and that fortune does favor the brave, because even taking your life means being a coward. That's not being brave. Being brave is saying, you know what, whatever it is that I'm dealing with, fine. That this voice in my head that's telling me I'm not worth it, whatever. But also I have this other voice in my head that says, dude, you can do anything you want. You've overcome worse. You can achieve anything you put your mind to. And so which one do you listen to, right? Do you listen to the one that's empowering you and telling you what you need to hear and know for you to live this life experience the best you can? Or do you hear to the one that's just sort of beating you over the head? And so to me, those quotes help me do that, right? Help me escape the Joker, right? You know when when the Joker has Batman on a corner, right, and he's just like beating him, and Batman sees no other way, and then something comes out, or if he has some sort of boomerang, and he frees himself. Well, that's me where those quotes. There were those tools that allowed me to be that voice, and we'll get back up again, right, to try again.
All right. So it really sounds that there's sort of these hooks, these additional boosters of energy when you feel like you can't anymore. But how do you know that you know which voice to listen to? Because clearly you've had one that you listened to quite a lot, which was not really helpful at times. But you did listen to it still. So how do you know that one is good for you and one is not? Because one could be
Yeah,
delusional as well,
that's what.
right?
Yeah, no, and that's a fact. Um, that's I personally realized that when fleshing myself psychologically. I Because once I started taking inventory of where those perspectives took me, where does that thought pattern end? What does this thinking result in, or how has this strategy of mine helped me in life? Um, I start discerning that maybe that voice is not the one to listen to, right? And that voice of fear, the voice of what if, the voice of take care of, do it first, or somebody else is gonna do it to you, or do it anyways because somebody else has to do it anyway, so why not you, right? Those it took a lot of self development, a lot of digging into where those patterns led me, and then realizing that the results weren't the results that I thought, the results that I wanted. And then I think that in many different ways, we also learn that indirectly, or maybe perhaps directly, from mythology. We learn it from art. We learn it from music. We learn it from movies, right? When you watch a movie, the hero always goes through the hardest of circumstances, but never gives up. And in a way, I personally understood that as a guideline. I'd say, hey, it seems to be this way. It seems to be that at some point you're gonna get to that point in the wheel of life, and it depends on what you do there that matters most at the rest of the cycle. And what I did in those exigent circumstances eventually led to the results that I didn't want. So I said, well, why am I going to keep listening to this voice when all it's telling me is to always be prepared for impact? It's always telling me to keep people at a distance. It's always telling me to not be romantic or loving or selfless because this person might leave me, right? And then, like people say, I'm opening up and I don't want to get hurt, right? I interpret that as being that, but he really, what he really did, it was just sabotage me. It just sabotaged me of the actual experience. It sabotaged me of doing my best, of giving my best, of trusting someone wholeheartedly. And then whatever happened is the result of their choices, right? And I can always go back to the hero voice and say, yeah, whatever happens, I
Mm.
can, I will be able to overcome it. So it's not like, it's almost, or at least personally, it's not like I knew. I just sort of erred on that side, and through other influences, I learned to listen to that voice more than the other. Plus, I have to say that perhaps the earliest credit to this also goes to my dad, because even though he many of his behaviors were the demons that I had to fight throughout life, um, he didn't know what he was doing. He I actually I know he did his best, and if he hadn't raised me that way, perhaps I wouldn't have been able to survive all these situations. So that brought closure and forgiveness, and now I have a relationship with my dad that's amazing. Um, but also, he told me once, he said, "Hey, two words that should never come out of your mouth is I can't. Never let those words come out of your mouth. Doesn't matter what happened. Never say I can't. You'll figure out a way, get creative, but never say I can't." And that was also a big influence on knowing which voice to listen to, or at least which voice to elicit.
Wow. Okay. So there was like this. It's very powerful because what was the Henry Ford quote? Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And that's
Right.
so true in so many ways because just thinking in the way that you can't overcome that obstacle means you have given up already. It might be that it's impossible to do it in the way that you intend to. Sure, maybe. But you might be creative and find other ways to get around, find other people to help you, find new to get around, find other people about possibilities. But immediately, not even trying. Yeah. So
That's where
it,
fortune favors the brave comes in.
yes, yes. Just to, because it's actually really, really tough to think further or continue when you already have this feeling of like, okay, I can't anymore. But the funny thing or the interesting thing is there, what you just said, is that in a split second, in a moment's notice, you can think differently. And through that, or get an insight, get an epiphany. And through that, you just get energy again. You're willing to write for a gazillion hours this book because you had suddenly this idea, this is important. I need to share this. And so I think that's something that I would love for a lot of people, especially like my clients, that try to bring that really close. That this is the thing that defines you, whatever struggle you have right now, and at the same time, it's the thing that also gives you energy. And I find it so awesome that you see both things now. Because in the beginning, you were sharing how you were walking through the world and seeing everything with the same pair of glasses, essentially, and seeing your dad as the one that uh, pulled the rug under your feet. But now you can actually also see that, wait, there was also an element in there that was so important and valuable.
Right.
And so I think there is in many different ways we can look at the past, we can look at the current situation in different ways, and that ability gives us so much freedom. Almost like the Viktor Frankl quote of there's a gap between stimulus and the response, and in that gap lies your freedom to choose how you respond to that. And that is just so beautiful because it gives you all the possibility and the options back. And
Yeah, and it's that's so funny. That's such an understated quote.
yeah, it is so powerful because everything that happens is in the external, but you can still decide on how you respond to it. And that's truly where your power is. Like it's not nowhere else. And so,
And unfortunately, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, please, please.
Yeah, it's a challenge. So I used to mindset coach. So I'm certified mindset coach. I'm not coaching anymore just because I'm devoted to writing. But the main challenge was trying to explain that to someone, right? And I think even for myself, the main challenge was that, because when you're in a situation, you have this voice that tells you how you're supposed to feel, what you're supposed to think. And if you don't feel and think those things, then something could be wrong with you. Something might be wrong with you. How can you not feel sad if a family member dies? Or how can you be happy if you just get fired from your job? Right? It sounds almost crazy. And but the truth is that we actually have that gift. We have the gift of how you speak to yourself, how you interpret situations, how the same way we're quick to go down the negative route of catastrophizing things and envisioning the worst things that are going to happen to us. And we also have the ability uh, to think the best thing that could happen to us.
Mm.
And people unfortunately have a pessimistic worldview. I mean, I had a pessimistic worldview uh, until you actually realize that it's an actual power, it's an actual skill, it's an actual gift that we have to think what you want, to think, obviously what you do with that, that's where that's where the narrow path lies, because the same way that you can think whatever you want, and you can be, let's say, your grandfather passes away at 85 years old, and sure, it evokes some feelings of sadness, of loss, right? It's almost counterintuitive to fight that. um but you can still be thankful for his life and say, the old man lived his life. He endured 85 years of this crap, and he's off to somewhere else. Whatever, maybe he'll be reincarnated. Whatever it is you believe in, but I'm thankful for him. And sure, I'm sad because I appreciated his presence, and I will miss him. Right? That's one thing to choose what you can be broken down and destroyed or whatever, but on the other side of that blade, there's people who commit things that are against other people, that are unethical or immoral, and use that power for the same purpose. Say, I don't care I don't care if we shove pounds of or kilos of sugar down kids' throats on Halloween, which they're gonna become addicted for the rest of their lives because I need to keep my business. Right? I don't care if they're addicted to sugar for all their life. I don't care if 90% of the population is obese. I get my pockets full. And so they use the same gift in an extreme way, and well, obviously counterproductive for everyone. And so I think that's a great gift. It's like a sword, right? You have to learn how to use it within the constraints of your own moral limit. But when it comes to challenges, and when it comes to what we, the 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 sugar companies are rather extreme. Most of us dwindle on the side of just trying to get by and overcome suffering and fight with the unexpected things in life. And I think that's a great tool, if not the one, to overcome everything else.
Wow. So it's such a fantastic tool, as you said. How would you suggest someone can learn that? Because if I now imagine some of the people listening now to this, and they feel like in a stuck situation in their life, they feel doubting themselves. I can't do this. The job is not what I want. I'm not in a relationship. I don't know how to move on. And then just like, oh yeah, because I know how it sounds from the outside. Just think different, just, oh, there's the tough situation coming. Cool. Just think, I don't know, opposite to it, or find a new way of viewing it. So do you have some practical tips that maybe helped you that you would like to share now?
Yes, the first thing is perspective, because we have been led to think that change, physical change, it can happen overnight. And some people are rich overnight, they become famous overnight, they become successful overnight, they get the perfect relationship overnight, they get their dream job overnight. But and so what happens is when somebody tells you, "Man, I hate my job. I barely have enough money to pay the bills. I'm working 60 hours a week," and you're like, "Well, just change it." And I go, "Oh, it's not that easy." That's the first thing that comes to mind, and you're like, "Well, it's not. You can't change it right away." But imagine you live in this house in the forest, and you're cold, and now the winter's here, and you went the last winter without wood because you've been trying as hard as you can to chop down this tree, the only tree that's in your yard. You've been trying to chop it down, and nothing happens. The tree won't come down. And so you've been cold the whole winter. During the summer, you don't have wood to bake with. And somebody comes and tells you, well, you're chopping the tree with a hockey stick. And so now you're like, huh. And you can't go and get a chainsaw right away or climb on top of that tree and try. You have to learn how to do it progressively. You have to learn how to use an axe. You need to learn how to sharpen that axe so it's efficient. Then you need to learn how to use a chainsaw, and then you got to become stronger so you're able to use that chainsaw to chop down the tree into smaller pieces. And so it's a gradual change. And so sure, you can change absolutely everything, but everything is it's a gradual process. And if you were in that job that's been torturing you and you have no money to pay your bills, you can change it. Just change it. But that doesn't mean jump ships and go to something else, which is something I've done many times and you can also do. I mean, I've quit job without anything in foresight just because I've hated it or because I couldn't take it anymore. I wasn't making ends meet. And somehow fortune favored me, right? I was brave enough to quit the job. So fortune just favored me with something else and better. And when I look in my past, that's actually been the case every time, even though whether I realized it or not back then. And so for someone who wants to start using the tool of mindset, you have to understand that it's a gradual process. You don't run an ultra 100-mile marathon the first day. First of all, you'll know it's impossible. You will know it's impossible, right? When you think about that, you'll know. And then everyone that tells you that mentions marathons, no, you know what? I tried it. It didn't work. I gave it my best try. I only did 15 miles and I died. So I think it's a gradual thing, and it's something that it's a process that happens, little by little. Don't chop a tree with a hockey stick.
But there's this idea, this wish sometimes, and I can see my younger self it's so strongly. But I can just, why doesn't it just quickly happen? Why can't I just like get this job like very quickly? And I just need to write this one email to that person and probably get it like presented to me. And one thing I think that comes with that is, at least right now, what I see now is that everywhere on the internet you can see this quick online course on how to get this done in 3 weeks. And most of the times it's just not true, but it's everywhere you can see those promises. And I think, at least to me, when I look back at my own story, is that I wished that those words and stories were true. And so I was going after that. I think I started by now 3 different podcasts before this one, because I hoped finally with the new one, it will finally change. And overnight, I suddenly have an audience and people listening to it, and now I'll get the guests that I want and whatever. It didn't happen. And so now I finally get this larger insight, or I don't know if it comes just with age or with trials and with failures, that you become to realize actually if something is really worth doing and it's difficult, it just takes time. And that's such a beautiful piece that I think in today's society is so tough to get to, because there's always these promises, order anything on Amazon, you get it sometimes the same day. It's like, wow, this is so counterintuitive to today's culture, I think. And so that you said in one, I remember now, a beautiful quote of yours that was, upgrading my life experience became a simple game of one step a day. one step further away from emotional hell, or one step closer to love, purpose, and peace. And that reminded me of this. I know what this is for, and every single day I'm taking a small stride towards that. And so beautifully like connected those things. And I want to go even more into the practical parts, because I think you shared so many bits and pieces of that. I'll share the list of tools that you gave, which I think is wonderful. I did the self-authoring program of Jordan Peterson as well, a couple of the tests as well. So that's, I think, a wonderful tool list that I will for sure put in the show notes for anybody who wants to do that. But if now some people are, because I remember myself being in a perpetual cycle of doubt of what's the next move, and then not actually moving forward, and then doubting, oh, should I invest actually 3 months into learning this? What if this fails? And then actually not moving at all. So if anyone is somewhere is in a tight spot and doesn't know how to move forward, is afraid, or just doubting, what are some of the words they would like to share with that person?
I think doubt is part of our existence, um, especially because modern culture and I would say worldwide, right? Some countries less than others, but you you are indoctrinated from an early age, and you're almost forced to know what to expect. And that forcing happens at an emotional level. In my case, it happened psychologically, physically, emotionally. But nowadays is more emotionally psychological, right? Kids don't get punished physically, but they do get guilt trips, or you're not the best of the class and whatnot. So I think doubt arises from that, because we are conditioned to know what's next, to make the best choice, to know, to not fail, right? To try to guess out of the infinite possibilities which one is the one that won't lead to failure or humiliation, which really just translates to the feeling, the inner feeling of just failing, of not meeting that standard, right? But I think that a key piece of that is commitment, because many people have said that the 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 the, the price is the journey, not the destination, right? And people have said that in many different ways, right? Enjoy the journey, not the destination. I've heard someone say the way it's the reward. And when you start thinking about that, I don't know if you ever order something online that you really wanted for a long time, and it just took a while to get to you. Whether and a while means a day or 3 weeks, and the whole time you're in this high-end emotional state, and you're excited, and you're thinking about what you're gonna do with that thing, and how your life is gonna improve, and how much better you're gonna be, and it's like this positive emotional state of looking forward to something. Then you get the thing, then you use it for day 2 days, and then it becomes like people's treadmills, right? They buy the treadmill to get into shape, and then they hang their clothes on it. So so sorry, I just got a coffee. So so the I believe that the journey is the reward, because that's when you're always wanting to progress. That's when you always want to get better. That's when you always have a next milestone to hit. And part of making that sustainable, it's being kind to yourself, and again, taking it one step at a time. I couldn't gone from the age of suicide to amazing and loving and empathetic and understanding, because it's just not possible. I knew what I needed to do, but to get there, I had to take a step at a time. To write the book, I knew what I needed to do, but it took me a lot of work to actually train my physical body to do it. And so, but once you start looking at that, looking at daily progress as your wins, as your fulfillment, when you give it your best, when you, despite your doubts, despite your fears, you commit to it, and you say, this is something that fulfills my needs in this ways, right? and it's gonna help people in this ways, and it's gonna have this impact, and it's gonna leave a mark when I'm not here anymore, right? I can die tomorrow, but at least I'm still in a book, so people remember me, or learn, or just a positive impact in general. Then that's the prize, that's the reward, and everything else it's a result. People, billionaires often say, money is just the result of being okay inside. It's not, you don't make money or achieve success or have a relationship with the woman you dreamt of, and then you feel good inside. You feel good inside first, and then you work towards achieving that, because at no point in time, the way you feel depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. And so it's almost the same result, but with a different process. And when you take the process of the journey is the reward, then it's impossible to abandon, because if you see yourself growing daily, and you see you have even if it's just a little bit of impact, that's fulfilling, that's rewarding, right? And so that's how I see it. I think commitment, you have to commit, and then you have to close your eyes and walk by, some will say walk by faith, right? If I wanted to publish this book, I walked by faith many times. There were times where I had no money, I didn't know what I will have to do. I had a choice. I could take option A and it will solve my immediate problem, but it will stop me from option B, which was continuing down this path of finishing what I knew I had to do. And so I said, you know what? I'm just gonna continue on my path no matter what happens. And then fortune favors the brave. Something came up, and it solved my problem, and it was like, okay, I'm good, right? And same thing with, I think, everything else. Once you commit to it, and it's the right thing to do, because you also sort of know. Um, maybe you did a couple of different podcasts because nothing resonated with you as much as the one that you're doing now does. Um, Maybe they didn't have the impact. Who knows your reasoning? But now it's easier to keep on that path, because you say, hey, my book might save one person from suicide. It might save one person from divorce. It might save one person from beating their child, or abusing a kid, right? The way that I experienced it. And so that, to me, it's so worth it. So worth, just to see one person, because you never know what impact that person's gonna have. I mean, Columbus was just one dude, and he said, "I'm just gonna go across the ocean," and then he, for better or for worse, discovered America, and here we are, right? And then one guy said, "I'm gonna make a car," and here we are. And now Elon Musk is saying, "I'm making rockets to go to Mars," and here who knows how that's gonna translate into something else? But he's just one human being, and you never know who had an impact on that person to say, instead of making rockets to go to Mars, he could be making nuclear weapons. He could be making things to exterminate humanity. You know what? Could go either way. So, um, to me, that makes it worth it. But commitment, I think, it's number one.
Hmm. But what I also hear in that is like looking at the progress, because I think that I get quite easily impatient. I notice when I have this goal. Okay, when I have, let's keep that example with the podcast. I don't know, 5,000 listens or something, and I'm like, oh, but I'm only like 12. But I don't see that actually in the last few weeks, each episode has getting more and more and more views, and like sort of looking at the distance of where I'm at now and the goal where I want to go, instead of looking at the path or the steps that I've already taken and that have built skills, that have built insights, that have built connections to actually lead then eventually to that goal.
And
Yeah.
and and how about you becoming a hero? I mean, I think that it's huge, because you can, sure. Let's say your podcast gets Tim Ferriss level, and you get billions of downloads. That's cool and all, but Tim Ferriss is not doing his podcast anymore. He's doing things here and there. He lives his life the way he lives his life, which I don't say I admire, but I appreciate, because I think we all want to have that freedom, quote unquote. But he's still not free from living. He's still not free from pursuing things. He's still not free from embarking on endeavors, because he feels the need to continue to grow. And so I think that, in a sense, just achieving any goal, it's not at least personally, the achievement of the goal, that's the goal, so sorry for the redundancy, but it's who you become in that process. And and,
Mm.
and now you become the person. I mean, you have one person listening to you. That's great. Somebody is interested in what you have to say. You have 100 people, you have 1,000 people. That's amazing, right? And then the right people will come to you. I see a lot of guys that spend so much money on having followers and having listeners, but it doesn't mean anything, because at the end of the day, they go to sleep. They know they're spending all of this money on marketing. None of those people are actually really listening to the content. Uh, then they, yeah, sure, they're making money, but they're spending money to make money. So now it's a trap. Now they feel like they're cheating themselves. It's almost like a vicious cycle. So what even the point of doing that? Why not just get there, man? Like, man, I became a hero by playing all of these dragons on my way to being established, respected, listen to podcasts or read book or whatever it is, right? And that because then after that, let's say one day you wake up and the podcast is not your thing anymore, but you still the hero who made his way to that point. And so that same hero now says, man, I don't want a podcast. Now I want to do this thing. And then I want to do this thing. And then I want to do this thing. And that's why money becomes just a sort of a result of it, because now you're not living for money or for security or for anything else. You continue to grow personally. You continue to become stronger and to take on bigger challenges and helping other people do it too.
Yes, and it's awesome the way you said it just now. It's not like actually about achieving the goal, it's who you become in the process. And I want to inch it a little bit further, even. It's actually how you do things, like who you are while you do things. So while you work through the despair of just having one listener, while you work through writing the book, who are you when you actually do go through your challenges? Because that's the person who you will be also when you achieve that goal. And I think that is such a awesome perspective, including the hero's journey from Joseph Campbell. Actually, I want to recommend that to a lot of people to understand that is where we go through many times during our lifetime. And there is gonna be through life difficulties where you get these quests for life, the quests, the calling for this adventure, and then have to go through the difficult part of that, hit rock bottom. Some part of you has to die, and you emerge as a new person, a hero that comes back to the old folks or the village and can present that what you have learned through being another person, through having become the hero. And that is so beautiful.
It's beautiful, and it's beautiful for you. It's a good gift to yourself. I mean, how can you recall a moment where you overcame something really challenging? How did that
Yes.
feel? Right? It feels like, man, that's such a gift. Or a day that you worked more than you wanted to. You worked a lot more than you really would have liked to, but you lay down on that bed, tired from work, your muscles are aching, and you feel this sense of like, wow, this feels so good. So it's almost counterintuitive. But yeah, that the journey is really the price, because it sort of sucks hitting goals too. Like when you reach your goal, you're kind of like, okay, what's next?
You have to set new goals. Oh, damn. Okay,
Right.
starting new
But
from zero
you're
in a
right. So
way.
yeah, might as well just start dreaming about putting a rocket in Mars, because that's high enough that, obviously your level of goals are not the same for a person who doesn't have your gifts and talents per se, right? Um, I read a quote uh, uh, once about I forgot exactly what the quote was about, but it's all about how you unfold in the world, right? And what it is that you do with the things that you're given.
Hmm.
And your goals are different than someone else. Maybe a podcast is something unachievable for someone else, right? And for you, you became that hero. Maybe one hero is trying to slay a pig. That's all they can wrestle with, and you're dealing with a dragon. And there's a guy who dealt with a hydra, and there's so it's a I think it's a good gift to yourself to just do that, to face that fear and to face your dragon, and then reap that reward afterward.
Mm. Just a quick reflection that recently, actually today, I had a coaching session, and one thing in there she was listening to a couple of webinars and meditations that I did before, and then at some point decided to, okay, I want to have a one-on-one session. And I didn't know her before, and she was just mentioning, yeah, but just the way you came across, like so calm and in a way confident, I wanted that too. That's why I reached out. And to me, that calm, I had for a very long time as connotated as boring and connotated
Right.
as, yeah,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this was such a good, like, again, reflection on, oh wait, there's a lot of different, like, and I gave that to her as well at some point. It's like there's always two sides of the how's that called in English? The two sides of the medal, I think. At least in German
Or the
it's called.
coin.
The coin.
Sure.
Oh, there you go. And in German it's the medal that you have, the thing
Right,
you
right,
get
right,
with a
right, right.
trophy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, with all of these skills that you have, that is one of the best exercises that I did for myself. I wrote a long list of all the things that I think suck at. And then a day later, when I felt better, I flipped that around and looked at, okay, what are the upsides of these things? And that was exactly one of them. Like, I felt like I'm boring. I'm just like annoyingly like silent and not interactive and all of these things. And then on the flip side, wait, a lot of people struggle with winding down and calming. I was like, okay, there you go.
And a lot of people like heavy metal, and a lot of people like jazz, and a lot of people like electronic music, and some don't resonate with you, and that's just warranted. And some people will completely resonate with you. And so that's so true. I mean, unfortunately, we we believe these things about ourselves because we base them on what others have said, right? The ones that around us have said about us and what they perceived us to be. Um, but that doesn't mean that classical music is boring just because the guy likes heavy metal, right? It just means that that's just not what he resonates with, and unfortunately, that person can see the value behind it, and that's part of self developing. It exactly that, or just finding out who you are, right? Who because if I find having a conversation with you exciting and exciting in ways that not even the wildest emotional display will express it, right? Because it's about a different type of excitement. I couldn't talk to somebody who's yelling at me. It doesn't matter how entertaining they are. It's just almost like, oh, right? And it's just the way it is. Um, I've experienced the same thing where I thought that my proclivity to get up again and try again was foolishness, because I've been called an
Mhm.
idiot or a fool most of my life by everyone who's been around me until somebody from the special forces came and said, "Hey, I heard something you said and it resonated with me. How do you do that?" And you're like, "Wait, what?" And then you have you do these dating shows on Netflix and whatnot. So I've coached people from the dating shows, and they're like, well, how do I go there here and not feel afraid of this and this and this and this? And all of a sudden, this curse that you thought you had, or this way of thinking, or this way of looking at the world, happens to be the key that other people need to overcome whatever it is they're dealing with, right? Just your calmness or your soothingness, or just having say, well, just go give it a go. It's not wishful thinking. You'll overcome it. And some people think, oh, that's stupid. And some others are like, that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Hmm. That's perfect. Yeah. Just allowing yourself to see the gifts that you actually have. So powerful. All right. Then when a person feels like they're resonating now with what you said, how can they best get more of you?
That's hard to say. I'm like
Hmm.
Batman.
Yeah.
Well, they can definitely check out the book, because the book, even though it's my first attempt at writing a book, uh, it has the core things that I learned. I said, if I die tomorrow, why do I want my kids to definitely know? And so my book is the first step into, if my message resonates with you, then sort of to see what other things I've dealt with and how it is that I overcame them and what kind of results that produced. But obviously, It's a small book, and it doesn't encompass all the nuances and small things from every life experience. So what I've been trying to do is post a blog as often as I can, post some YouTube videos. Being a single dad and caring for my kids full time really gives me a lot of constraints in many ways. So I do that in the little holes that I find when I'm not writing a new book. So I'm writing a second book now. It's about marriage. It's called The Traps of Marriage. And because I've been married twice, and I'm going to get married for the third time to the girl that said that she was leaving right before I experienced that. Even my relationship changed from that day on, and my relationship today with the same woman, it's something that I could never dream of. I could have never dreamt of dating someone so beautiful, because first of all, I like beauty, but then intelligent, caregiving, empathetic, and it's such a fulfilling relationship. But that had a lot to do with me, right? I had to become the person first instead of just wishing to find it in someone else. So my new book is gonna use the mindset perspective mostly on the things that you can improve within yourself, so then you can instill that change on others around you and achieve a better relationship. And then just on Twitter, at Victor Just Freddy. But again, I'm not super active on social. I spend my days in my office with writing and creating content and then publishing in one way or another.
All right, in the book, the book No Grails, No Without Dragons. Where can they find that? I presume on your website is the best way.
Yes, in Germany and not in the United States, you can find it on Amazon. You can download a PDF version, which is also discounted on my website, No Grail Without Dragons, or victorjustfreddy.com. And for your listeners, I would like to extend a courtesy download for free. You just go to my website and put Doubtless on it as the code. I'm sure we'll put it on the note, and they can download a free version of our book.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Very, very appreciate it. And thank you so much for so much time and wisdom you just gave in that a bit more than an hour. Found it very awesome how you could, for yourself, dissect it. I see that you've done so much work on actually understanding what patterns you have had, the emotional ways that you've been influenced, and then guiding yourself in a direction that can lead you to this slowly but surely, one day at a time, into a more healthy way that you can have better relationships, that you can have better relationships with your children, better ways of dealing with money, with pride, with maybe also guilt. We didn't even discuss that. So many other topics I want to talk to you about. But these, I think, are at least some of the things that one can take from this already. And I'm really grateful that you took the time to share that with the Doubtless podcast audience. Thank you so much.
I'm thankful, Julian, and I'm humbled because I feel myself rambling a lot. So thanks for letting me ramble.
Yeah, to me it was exciting. To me, I needed to see like where's the gist of who you are and what are those paths that are wired in your mind, because that gives to me the insights. That's where I can really understand another person and get what they have learned. And I want to learn, obviously, from everybody I listen to. And so, yeah, thank you so much.
Such a pleasure.
And for all the listeners, thank you so much for staying until the end, because I think there was so much value now in this podcast that I would highly recommend to go back to the beginning and listen to it again, because I think there's so many intricate things that about the way to improve the mindset, the way to improve the behavior, the emotional states, to understand things, and maybe just go through in your own life experiences and situations where you have encountered similar emotions and reflect on that. And for now, thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful you joined this journey, and looking forward to the next time you listen to it. Thanks so much. Awesome. You listened to the full episode. Your investment to a more calm, confident, and doubtless self. Now you can make a commitment to yourself and help others discover this podcast, simply by subscribing and following the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. I hope to see you here soon again for the new episode dropping every other Thursday. Talk soon.